kia ora koutou. Ko Irihapati te maunga, ko Te Aumati te Tai, ko Tainoi te waka, ko Ngāti Koata te iwi, ko Whakatū te marae, ko Roy Arthur Weber rawa, ko Muriel Butler, oku tūpuna i te taha o tōku mātua, ko Benjamin Hippolyte rawa, ko Maria Elkington, oku tūpuna i te taha o tōku whaia, ko Bill Weber rawa, ko Ngāwai Hippolyte, oku mātua, ko Caroline Tokuunai.
Why have you decided to accept a nomination for this year's Ngāti Koata Trust Board elections?
Well, growing up at French Pass, I feel like I had a very unique and privileged experience of that opportunity where I got to grow up in what I would say is the heart of Koata. And I feel very deeply connected to our whenua. But what comes with whenua, obviously with Koata, is people. And so over a lifetime, I've had many examples of for my parents, my grandparents, other aunties and uncles who have been iwi focused and community minded. And they really set a benchmark and a bar of actually what that means to give back. And I think that's one of the reasons that I wanted to stand for the board. Look, I love Koata. I couldn't think of a better way to give back by being on the board, being able to help with that decision-making process, being able to influence the future and where we're going. And one of the things I think about is the positive impact that those decisions can have, not only on our rangatahi, but also on our Pākeke, our kaumātua, and being included in what's going on the board. I think that's a good opportunity to be included. I think the timing is right for me. I completed doing an MBA last year, so I'm no longer studying, and I think there's some of those skills that I can bring through if I'm successful in getting through onto the board. But yeah, really, it's something I've always wanted to do. Look, I had a crack at it last year, it didn't quite go my way, so I thought about it, and this is something I really wanted to do. So I thought, I'll have another go at this.
What are the skills and experience you will bring to the board?
Look, I think there are some both soft and hard skills that I come with. Some of the softer skills, I'd like to think that I'm approachable and relatable, and really keen to hear your concerns, and used to being in an environment of listening. I come with an open heart and an open mind, a growth mindset, and I think I have a can-do attitude and a high work ethic. If I think about some of the harder skills, I've been working across government and local government for the last about 20 years, where I've had lots of opportunities to try different things. Just a couple of things. I've been involved in contract management, project management, change management, led big and small teams. I've recently had the opportunity to be seconded as the Chief Probation Officer at Corrections. And so that was leading a large team with multiple pieces of work. And so I know how to manage big pieces of work. And one thing that I have been working on is, how do you take big amounts of information and be able to understand it, process it, and then put it into simple speak, because sometimes some things get quite complex. I've got governance experience at the moment. I'm sitting on a national board for the police and for corrections of what we call Te Pai Oranga, and actually Te Piki Oranga in Nelson has recently become a part of that program or project. What else have I done? Currently, actually this is something that I think I could bring to the fore, is currently I work on a Māori Pathways project, which is a $98 million project working with iwi to improve the correction systems across 3 areas. And so I've had the opportunity to have a look in the far north around what Ngā Puhi, Ngāti Rangi, Ngāti Hini do, on the east coast, Ngāti Kahungunu and Ngāti Parau, and also to the south, Ngāi Tahu and Taumotu. And looking at what other iwi are doing, I think is really important, because we don't have to come up with all of these ideas ourselves, and there's other people much bigger iwi who've been doing a lot of other things. And look, this is some of the things that I think I can bring to the conversation. Just another thing that I like that I think we could do something about is growing in the leadership space. I really like how Ngāti Toa have the weekly leadership hub space. We have different speakers and that come in, and this is, our people Our people are the most important thing, and I think we need to be looking at how we grow our people, and I think there's some great ideas that I could bring that I've seen happen in other iwi.
What do you believe are the biggest concerns facing our iwi today, and how do you think the board can best address these concerns?
That's a pretty big question, and one of the things I have done is, rather than try and answer it myself, I actually asked a number of people, a number of our iwi members, what did they think were some of the biggest concerns, and I actually wrote them down. So in no particular order, this is just what I heard. Housing, home ownership and housing affordability, employment, partnershiping with business, education, both formal education and sort of education around whakapapa and who are we, and the importance of that. Growing leaders, how do we grow leaders? How do we do succession planning when it comes to governance and onto the board? Investing in our people, how are we doing that and how can we do that some more? And look, the biggest thing that I think from hearing all of these things that I would say is engagement. And I don't think that we are the only iwi who would be saying this. You just heard me in my previous answer talk about other iwi, and I think this is the biggest question that all iwi are asking, and that question is, how do we engage our people more? And that's not just our rangatahi coming through, that's our Pākeke, that's our kaumātua. Now, how do we engage people in Te Koata? And off the top of my head, when I was thinking about this question, one thing I think about when I think about AGM is the part that I love the most is when we do the huia iwi, and you get to hear all the cool things that have been happening across the year. And I do wonder in the comms space, I come from a project background as well, how do we comm some of the stuff out? How do we have more iwi? We're in 2022 going into 2023. We all have miraculously have survived COVID, and we've gone into more of a technological age. So how do we, through using technology, how do we reach out to people? I had a few of our cousins who are overseas at the moment and haven't had the same opportunities that I have to grow up with our whenua. So how are we engaging people to come back and connect with whenua? And I think at the very least, when we talk about engagement, even the smallest steps, I was talking to one of our cousins, get registered, look at the newsletters that come out every month and vote. Even doing those three things are three ways that you can start your journey with engaging with iwi.
If you are elected, what is something you would like to achieve personally as a trustee of Ngāti Koata Trust in your 3-year tenure?
Look, one of the biggest things that I personally would like to achieve, and that is connecting as many of our whānau, as many of our iwi back to Koata, because I think there's a massive disconnect, not just for us, but for a lot of iwi are experiencing this. And one of the things that I think is people are my jam, and I would really, really want that. That's the biggest thing. I think even starting to do a little bit of a campaign, it's given me the opportunity and reason to ring up a lot of our whānau who I probably wouldn't have rung up ordinarily. And I think in talking with them, actually it's about how do we connect and better engage with people, and that's something that I would like to do. I'd like to increase our participation rates. And actually, one of the things that resonated with me, and it was actually something that Randall Hippolyte said as part of his evidence in the 2003 Waitangi Tribunal, and it was about keeping strong links with whānau and te tau ihu. And basically what he said is we have a responsibility and obligation to maintain our whakapapa connection. And I think having that privileged position of being at French Pass, growing up with the whenua, growing up in the heart of Koata, having the heart of the people come back as people connect back to whenua, I have had that opportunity to meet many of our whānau, and if there was one thing that I could really encourage would be to connect and engage with our people, both those who are in New Zealand and those who are not New Zealand.
Is there anything else you would like to share?
I think it's an absolute opportunity and privilege to be able to serve on the board. I feel that the timing is right. I think I've talked about some of the skills and things I could offer, but the biggest thing that is driving me is around how do we connect our whānau, our wider whānau into Ngāti Koata, If you haven't already, there's a little wee bio there that I wrote around the things that I think I could offer to the board. But the one thing I would really encourage people to do is, no matter what happens or which candidate you vote for, vote, because that's around participation, and that would be the biggest thing I'd encourage everybody to do. Ngā mihi.